It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. We come to you from Chicago, the UC, the United Center, where the Democrats are holding their little shindig. I'm sure you've been paying attention, watching the display, and coming out of this, the talk of the energy is not overblown. You have to be here to feel what is going on and feel what's the electricity in this room. And look, the hope is as this comes out of the convention, that energy continues. Because look, the thing that thrills me the most about what's going on here is labor is front and center in almost everything they're talking about. It's all about making lives better. Because look, today I woke up and I'm reading through my daily news scroll, and I come across a story that said the average household wealth in this country is over $1 million. That means the average household wealth, $1 million. We're all millionaires. Congratulations, America. We are all millionaires. And then you read down into the story that says, well, that's the average. The average is taking those billionaires and the poor people and mashing them all together, and that equals $1 million per household. Now, if you had a reasonable distribution of wealth across the economy, across all of our ladders of the economy, we would be doing well. Problem is, the top overwhelmingly represented with just a handful of folks. The Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezoses, those folks, and people who've been used to getting everything that they want politically and when they want it, of course. But then you drill down into and you look at the numbers. The median household wealth is a little over 100,000. And again, that's the median. That's thrown out the top and the bottom. That's that still a decent number, not horrible, but not what you're going to live on. And when you start thinking about retirement, you start thinking about families being able to put food on the table, a roof over their head, kids through college, vacations, all that stuff. When you start talking about that, it doesn't sound like an awful lot. And for me, again, it comes back to that redistribution of wealth that my Tea Party friends were so concerned about. Because you remember, and I do, my taxed enough already crowd out there fighting for lower taxes for the very wealthy. They believe that we're taxed enough. And as working people, I do believe we are. Just in other ways. Every sales tax, every tax on licensing, every tax on selling a home, you name it, and there's a way to get it, they're taking it from us. But we seem to let the billionaires, the people who have this outsized wealth, we seem to let them off the hook. So for me, being at this convention is about how do we start talking about redistributive policies? How do we start talking about ensuring that working people who show up every day at work, who bust their butts, their blood, sweat, and tears that have built this country, that they actually succeed? And today on the program, we're going to talk with my good friend Jeff Timmer about his thoughts on the convention and how this one compares to others. But also, Liz Shuler is going to be here, president of the AFL-CIO, and we're going to get the president of the Chicago Teachers Union to come share some thoughts on how do we give people those ladders of opportunity so that they can become wealthy, or at least wealthy enough to support themselves and their family. I keep saying all the time, I don't want to be rich. I don't want to make a killing. I just want to make a living. And I think that's the reality of most working people in this country, that we just want to make a living. So that's what we're going to spend today. I want to hear your thoughts on what are you hearing out there on this convention, and where should we be going after this? What should we be doing? We're going to take a quick break. Right back with Jeff Timmer. Stick around.
The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Thanks for tuning in to The Rick Smith Show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Rick Smith Show, like us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find all that and much more at thericksmithshow.com. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1900. That was the day that folk singer Malvina Reynolds was born to a Jewish family in San Francisco. Her parents were socialists and operated a tailor shop. Malvina learned the price of speaking out for what you believe in at a young age. Her parents opposed U.S. entry into World War I. Because of this, Malvina's high school would not issue her a diploma. She was able to still go to college at Berkeley, where she eventually earned her Ph.D. She married carpenter and labor organizer William Bud Reynolds. She became a prolific folk singer, playing around the Los Angeles area. During the 1960s, she wrote about songs supporting civil rights and labor rights. Her song, Free Enterprise, offers the lyrics, "The air you breathe is poison. The food you eat is worse. The dollars in your paycheck are pennies in your purse. There's nothing free about it. You pay at every turn, except the guys in Wall Street who have the stuff to burn. They had to make new brain machines to count their profits rise, but since there's always room for more, they can still make their profits soar. A little war does wonders for free enterprise." Perhaps her most well-known song is Little Boxes. The song was inspired by driving by hillside houses in Daly City, California. It talks about the conformity of middle-class suburbia.
They are put in boxes and they come out all the same. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family in boxes made of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
And a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Love spending time here in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention, and I just grabbed Jeff Timmer, one of my favorite internet people, one of my favorite Twitter folks, senior advisor over at the Lincoln Project. The work that they do, priceless. Got to be honest, having Republicans go, hey, this is how we've destroyed Democrats in the past. Now we're going to try and save democracy. Kind of a big freaking deal. And here to share some thoughts on where we're going. Jeff Timmer himself. Jeff, how are you, man?
Great, and it's great to be back here on your show. It's great to see you in person rather than on a Zoom.
Yeah.
This is great. And you know, one thing that the Lincoln Project has done is, I think, create some of the best content in politics over the last 4 years. Show others how to kind of fight in the when they go low, we go lower kind of mentality. To get back at them and, you know, punch these bullies in the mouth. And what Lincoln Project has been great at is here we are, just a bunch of ragtag former Republicans who said, you know, we don't like Donald Trump. We think he's a threat to democracy and violates everything we stood for as Republicans. And we've taken up a special place inside his head where, again, just last week, he threatened to sue us again. We got a cease and desist letter from his lawyer. We're constantly able to get in. Bring it on, man. Bring it on. Let's get to discovery. Let's get to this. I mean, it's the fourth time he's threatened to sue. He never does. He's all bluster. And so, yeah, this is a desperate man becoming more desperate by the day. We're going to see him grow increasingly cornered, desperate, and I think we need to ready ourselves for what is coming from his radicalized, in not just extreme, but when political scientists talk about radicalization versus extremism in a country, we usually look at foreign countries for this kind of phenomenon, but it's the normalization, the legitimizing of violence as a means to political ends, and we've seen that from the Republicans. I think we need to be prepared for it to happen in a much greater level than we saw 4 years ago, before, during, and after Election Day. It's not, I don't think we just need to be prepared for what happens after November 5th and then the January 6th and January 20th, but what happens between, here at the end of August as states start to do early voting, in-person absentee voting, drop boxes. That's the kind of thing we need to look for disruption, and start to talk about it, get folks who are political observers, political participants, pundits, media, talking about the potential of this, not to scare people from voting, but to prepare them for the kind of rumors that they might hear about potential of violence. Don't be deterred, because that's what we have to expect, that whether it's going to be from troll mills in Iran, or crazy right-wing militia in the thumb of Michigan. They're going to be doing this kind of thing. It's not an organized part of the Trump campaign or coming from the RNC, but it's kind of like in the Christmas Vacation movie when Chevy Chase says to Randy Quaid, "I wish my boss were here right now because I'd get it." So that, they go out on Steve Bannon's show or Charlie Kirk and they say something like that, and there's these weirdos and freaks who are already radicalized. They hear that, they go out and capture the boss and bring him to Chevy Chase on Christmas Eve.
It's interesting you went to Randy Quaid.
Well, yeah, they might bring Randy Quaid might be one of the radicalized loons out there.
Now I'm imagining this, but sadly so. But you're right. It's not going to be an official act. It's the kind of the right-wing bluster that comes out of the podcast world, out of talk radio. It's this kind of radicalization of the working class, because look, people have been struggling. That's very real. It's very true. Been tightening the belts, been sacrificing, stretching budgets.
Yeah, well, you have kind of a confluence of a lot of things. The inflation over the last few years has certainly caused a lot of real economic problems and certainly anxiety. But you also have then the white displacement theorists, the people who have been convinced that what is wrong in their lives is the fault of somebody else, the other. And when you mix that with a demagogue who is willing to say and do anything to stir that pot, you get these people that go from chat rooms in the dark corners of the internet to action. And that's what I think we just need to start talking about so that it's not as scary when we start to hear the rumors, because most of these people are just going to be they're all bark and no bite
until they bite.
But we can't be afraid of the bark.
Right. No, absolutely. Because you bring up an interesting point. We have become accustomed to going to the polls, not being afraid of who's standing there, not being afraid of anyone knowing we're voting, into an era where maybe possibly people are watching, that fear might be something that's interjected into this. And then how do we react as a country? Do we react boldly, like we saw in Iraq with the whole finger and ink and all that, or do we cower a bit?
Yeah, I don't think, at the end of the day, I don't think Americans are much into cowering. I think, we have enjoyed our freedom. We think it is a God-given right. And when enough people, and I think they are, starting to wake up and see what is happening, that people are trying to squeeze that out of us, deter us from that, make us either tired or afraid, we're going to say enough. And that's the vibe that I'm gathering here at this convention. This is my first time ever at a Democratic convention, and it is unlike any of the Republican conventions I went to in the normal times. Even the enthusiastic George H.W. Bush convention in 1988, when I was still in college, there was a great vibe there. Reagan was coming off his 2 successful terms, passing the torch. Great vibe. Nothing like this. People understand the mission. There's a lot of people here like me who aren't Democrats, who are here for the first time saying, I'm part of this pro-democracy coalition. I'm kind of an outsider in this tribe.
No, absolutely.
But this is how coalitions, this is how movements are built, is that people who don't have a natural connection or affinity, they come wandering in here. And that's where I've seen people say, I just wanted to be part of this. And they're not partisans. They're just people who've had enough. There's a Trump fatigue. It's why his ratings on The Apprentice fell from, appreciably at the end. He's on 10 o'clock on Friday night. Nobody's watching, right? And that's kind of the stage we're getting to. People used to watch this, and it was much more entertainment 8 years ago, if you can call it that. I mean, it's pretty awful. But a lot of people were entertained by the spectacle of Trump. That spectacle is worn very thin. He has no second act.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the outrage, you can only go so far.
Right.
Until you get to be, where he's at.
Right, yeah. I mean, Trump has jumped the shark. I mean, that's, I think, where we're at now, right? It's the Happy Days reference. The shows that are on too long do that. Trump has jumped the shark. The shark still has some teeth. We can't take him for granted that he's just, but the weirdo stuff,
the laughing there?
Well, but the laughing at him is kryptonite. It's the superpower. Monsters aren't scary in the light, as they are under your bed at night. And so this is, I think, the Tim Walz and Harris and the Democrats have stumbled upon this weird thing, and it's taken fire because people see the truth to it. They just intuitively say, yeah, that's. We can mock these guys.
And
that's how we beat them.
To be honest, a lot of the folks who are in this room were like me, who were a little concerned when Joe Biden was still the candidate, that couldn't get the punchline out. I think he's got great material, but like any comedian, if you can't deliver the punchline, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
So then when you saw that, look, because again, great material, transformational in my opinion, but to finally have someone who's got a little bite in her, a little fight. I've said for years, Democrats are the party of, in a street fight, they'll offer to hold your coat. Now this seems like they're going to take your coat, put it over your head, and smack you out a little bit.
Yeah, you look at the Harris Walz social media team, and it's largely the Joe Biden media team. They're just unshackled, unleashed, and it's the same people, but they've got a different attitude.
They got a mission.
And it's the right attitude for this. It's just, okay, let's take these people seriously as a threat, but there's no reason to be afraid of them because there are more of us than there are of them, and all we have to do is show up, and they can't do anything about it.
Show up. That's it. Now, you said a moment ago, the vibes, which seem to be the new word of this election cycle. Not a word I've used very much, but now it's the vibes. You mentioned, the H.W. Bush 88 convention, and I wasn't there, but I remember it. I remember it differently than you. I know there was a lot of excitement. We walked into that with a little, things are going to not be great. But it is electric here. I've been to other conventions. This does have a different atmosphere. Do you think it translates outside of this building? Do you think that this event, these couple of days, are going to translate to more people paying attention?
I think so. I think as the convention goes on now, these next 3 nights, I think we're going to start to see. Last night we had a little bit of a look back, and it was deserved, but it was a look back at we had Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, and they talked about how in some ways how we got here, not just the. I mean, they talked about the good. I mean, Biden gave a recitation of the. His greatest hits in his record. But the rest of this convention is going to be, okay, what comes next? This election isn't going to come down, it's going to come down to who offers the best path forward to Americans for the future. Do they want a future that is dark and dystopian and full of fear? Do they want one that's optimistic and prosperous and joyous? It's that simple, and Harris is a great messenger for that better future. People just see it. And Trump, there's nothing that Donald Trump is ever going to do to be optimistic and joyous and inspire people. And people want to be inspired. They want to believe.
Want a vision.
In something. Yeah, and that is clear. Tim Walz has been just, I think, a genius pick. I'm one of the. I do this for a living. I am a political junkie. And I had. Other than his name, I had no idea about Tim Walz, governor of...
As a labor guy,
yeah.
I followed his labor stuff.
Yeah, but, I mean, this guy is just... You can't... He has the it. You can't coach that. You can't teach pitch it. You can't consult into it. It is, you either got it or you don't. He has it. She has it. And there's this charisma, this natural, genuine connection with people. And I think it is remarkable, the transformation of the entire tone of this race across the country, where people, I think we have to look at the math. Kamala Harris is still an underdog in this race,
right,
because of the way the Electoral College works. But I'd still, even with that kind of inherent thumb on the scale for the Republicans, the Democrats are in great position, where now Trump is spending heavily in Georgia and North Carolina and looking at having to spend in Florida and Texas, because Bobby Kennedy's on the ballot in Texas. Joe Biden only lost it by a little less than 5 percentage points 4 years ago. Yeah. Can Kamala Harris be a little better than Biden was in 2020? Can Kennedy eat away a little bit of Trump's, make Texas within a handful of digits, within the margin of error? If that happens, where they're spending money in Florida, let alone Texas, I mean, then it's like, how big can they run up the score at that point?
Now the question is, if let's say they do have a blowout, does that equate to down ballot races? Do Democrats get the House? I think they're going to win the House, but do they hold the Senate?
Probably, maybe. The question mark there really comes down at that point to the state of Montana in John Tester's race. They hold Pennsylvania with Casey. Alyssa Slotkin wins the open seat in Michigan. Tammy Baldwin wins in Wisconsin. Gallego in Arizona, and Rosen gets reelected in Nevada.
What about Maryland?
Maryland, no. Not in a year like this. Larry Hogan I don't think has even a chance. He's going to suck up some money into there, but he's not going to get across. Rick Scott's in more trouble in Florida. But Sherrod Brown, I think, in this climate right now, and I don't know, we can change over the next 2 months, but right now Sherrod Brown is the favorite in Ohio. John Tester has come through. I mean, he's like Harry Reid. He's always behind in these races. They spend money to get him out, and then at the end of the day, he ends up winning by half a percentage point in a state that Trump will probably win by less than he did 4 years ago. That's the thing. Right. Trump isn't going to win Montana by 15 points again. If he wins it by 8 or 10, that's all that Tester needs to get across the finish line. But that gives them the majority.
Right, but I go back to what you said a moment ago about the shenanigans and the stuff that could possibly happen before. I'm not saying Republicans are going to go in and vote twice like they did in 2020.
Right.
In 2020, I'm not going to say that they're going to do that, but it's the stuff that they do beforehand. It's the laws that they pass, like in Georgia.
Yep.
It's like they did in Florida in 2000. It's the kind of things, the maneuvering, and now you've got all these marching soldiers who are looking for something to do. My red hat friends are the wannabe militias.
Right.
That's what's concerning.
Yeah.
And also, if I could real quick, this idea that states aren't going to certify, which I've heard, the undercurrent, they're not going to certify, and then it'll go to the House like we used to. The original intent, Jeff.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, though they're going to try. Even if Harris wins by 8 million votes like Biden did, or 10 million, or 12 million.
10.
The thing Americans, pro-democracy Americans, people who put country over party, can take solace in is the fact that the election deniers were beaten in the states that matter. We have a governor and a secretary of state who are pro-democracy in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Arizona, in Wisconsin, in Nevada, where there's a Republican governor, but also a Democratic pro-democracy Secretary of State. What we have to be concerned about, though, is at the very small local level, in Michigan, the system I know best, where there's 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans on this county canvasser board after the election. You need 3 votes to certify the election results. Even though it's against the law, we'll probably see Republicans in these counties, rogue Republicans refusing.
Yeah.
And we'll see the call go out to good patriots, they'll say, to do that, to not certify the election, to cause that chaos, to cause that undermining of faith in the results, no matter how big the result is. Now, the system is such that at the statewide level, with courts and the election supervision from the Secretary of State and certifications by governors, ultimately that stonewalling won't prevail. But every time it's implemented, it's going to further kind of coarsen and erode the faith in the outcome.
And that is the scary part of that,
it
isn't
is.
it? I mean, the sanctity of the ballot box, I think everyone agrees we should maintain.
Right. And it's going to take time for this this to heal. The big lie from 2020 is one of the most corrosive, destructive threats and attacks that we've ever had. It's a psychological op that's as damaging and dangerous to the future of our country as any military or terrorist attack that's ever happened to this country. And it's going to take there's some people who are lost to it. They'll never again trust the election.
I know those people.
And it's a large
Even
number.
when they win.
Yeah,
which is the weird part.
Right. But it's going to take time. Now, remember the Civil War, it took 100 years before we passed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. 100 years of...
I won't be around for that.
Right. Well, but I think we have to dig in. We're not going to get instant gratification. If Trump loses, and I think he will, that doesn't mean that things are going to revert back to normal.
That's what I wanted to ask you,
yeah.
the final question. You know, I say he has to be beaten soundly at the polls. And does that end the whole MAGA movement? Does that put Trump in the past? Or do we get someone worse?
I think we get a continuation. I don't think we might get worse in the sense of we might get
Josh Hawley,
the Hawleys, the Ted Cruz's, the Ron DeSantis's, but they've all shown so far that they lack the it. Whatever
demagogue.
You need the demagogue. You look at this stupid buffoon that is Trump, and you think, how does he do it? I don't understand it. There's going to be fields of study in sociology and psychology devoted to studying Donald Trump and the phenomenon that this country has experienced for the last decade. But the people who are radicalized by Trump, that will continue for several elections. I think we have to be ready for the next decade of pockets of MAGA. Because if Trump goes away, if he disappears from the face of the earth tomorrow, MAGA has metastasized into every cell of the Republican Party and into the legitimate cells of election inspectors and election county clerks and local clerks.
They've infested the system. And
yes.
It's going to take time to get the antibiotics in there to clear out.
We can't pass a denazification law, right? Our First Amendment protects. So we have to go through. Pain is going to be the only teacher that the MAGA movement, the MAGA Republican Party, will ever learn from. There needs to be a center, stable right faction in this country eventually, but it's going to be a while.
That's not good to hear. But Jeff, as always, I appreciate the time. Great stuff. You got to come back often.
Will do.
Thanks so much, our good friend Jeff Timmer, Senior Advisor there of the Lincoln Project. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Back from the convention.
Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1900. That was the day that folk singer Malvina Reynolds was born to a Jewish family in San Francisco. Her parents were socialists and operated a tailor shop. Malvina learned the price of speaking out for what you believe in at a young age. Her parents opposed U.S. entry into World War I. Because of this, Malvina's high school would not issue her a diploma. She was able to still go to college at Berkeley, where she eventually earned her Ph.D. She married carpenter and labor organizer William Bud Reynolds. She became a prolific folk singer, playing around the Los Angeles area. During the 1960s, she wrote about songs supporting civil rights and labor rights. Her song, Free Enterprise, offers the lyrics, "The air you breathe is poison. The food you eat is worse. The dollars in your paycheck are pennies in your purse. There's nothing free about it. You pay at every turn, except the guys in Wall Street who have the stuff to burn. They had to make new brain machines to count their profits rise, but since there's always room for more, they can still make their profits soar. A little war does wonders for free enterprise." Perhaps her most well-known song is Little Boxes. The song was inspired by driving by hillside houses in Daly City, California. It talks about the conformity of middle-class suburbia.
Where they are put in boxes and they come out all the same. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family in boxes made of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
And a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Here's a hard right political twist I was not expecting, and Tim Walz is probably surprised too. Within the confines of Trump's MAGA world, some are appalled by Walz's wealth. Wealth? They're claiming this former high school teacher is rich? No, and that bothers them. Walz gets a gubernatorial paycheck and a modest public pension. That's it. No portfolio of Wall Street stocks, no deferred payouts on corporate bonuses, and he doesn't even own a house, much less a vacation home. While this pegs him as a regular middle-class American, it seems to put off a covey of moneyed Trumpsters who see his lack of riches as a personal weakness. The Wall Street Journal recently featured one such partisan who says he prefers, quote, a high-net-worth politician, like J.D. Vance. Being rich, explained the partisan, means a candidate, quote, has financial acumen, business and investment savvy. Righto. For example, Vance was savvy enough to kiss up to right-wing Silicon Valley billionaire Peter Thiel, who has pumped millions into the fictional hillbilly, turning Vance into a pretentious Hill William. And please stop pretending that rich candidates are less corrupt since they aren't dependent on special interest funding. Trump himself put the lie to that when he recently begged a big oil group to give $1 billion to his campaign in exchange for his promise to slash their taxes. This is Jim Hightower saying, most bizarre is the assertion by Walz critics that his failure to be invested in Wall Street stocks means he's out of touch with the financial concerns of, quote, the average American. Hello, nearly all stocks are owned by the super rich, like Trump and Vance. In fact, the average American family owns 0 stocks, just like Walz.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Labor, the word of the convention. Everywhere you look, there is a labor presence. You look at the ring around the convention here where I'm sitting, it's all about the unions. And as I said, this is the most pro-union convention I have ever been to, and even gone out on the limb of saying the Democratic Party now, and I don't say this lightly, is the Labor Party. They not always have been, but here we are now, and that's why I think it's important to have Liz Schuler to come and sit down and talk with us. She is the president of the AFL-CIO, someone we've been trying to get on the show for a while. Liz, great seeing you.
Rick, it is such a joy to be with you, and you are absolutely right about unions' presence at this convention, it being a worker-centered convention, and I'm so happy to be here in Chicago, a union town.
You did a bang-up job on Monday night. You, Lee Saunders, the woman from April from SEIU, Claude from CWA, folks we've had on the program. Incredible moment.
We couldn't believe when we came out from behind the stage and the entire arena just lit up with these signs that said union yes.
Yep.
People who weren't even in unions were screaming union yes. So it was overwhelming, and you could really feel the energy, and I think it speaks to this notion that unions are actually at their highest numbers in terms of favorability. 70%, 71% are pro-union in the country now, and I think that was reflected in that moment.
No, and I think this is part of Joe Biden's legacy, the fact that he didn't choke on the word union. In fact, found Obama's comfortable shoes, walked on that picket line. I think that sends a massive message. So I guess the question I have is this part of the Biden legacy, or is this the moment coming out of the pandemic where people are just they're tired of getting screwed?
I think it's both, and one begets the other, because when they see a president with the bully pulpit say the word union over and over again, in some cases more than we in labor say it ourselves, that sends a very powerful message. And he says it not only in union crowds, but he says it when he goes to the Chamber of Commerce. So that's how strongly he believes in unions. And so that is a signal to working people. Hey, I can do this. I can form a union. I can make my voice heard, have the President of the United States walk a picket line with me when I do stand up. So I think he has helped us in so many ways. I mean, obviously with all the policy accomplishments, but really just proudly standing with unions, even when it wasn't popular.
No, and that's the important part. But even more than that, it's putting the people into those positions, like that wonderful woman at the NLRB.
Jennifer Abruzzo.
Her, or that wonderful woman at the FTC, or Jonathan Cantor, or the Julie Su, or the people that come with him. I think that's just as important as him putting on those shoes.
And sending people throughout his cabinet, the regulatory agencies from top to bottom, saying labor movement, working people have to be at the center. You need to wake up every morning thinking about how you're using your levers of power to advance the cause of workers. And that message came loud and clear. I'll tell you a quick story. One cabinet official, when they first got started in the Biden administration, said, I worked in the Obama administration and now I'm back with Biden, but he's really serious about this union thing. Like, I'm calling you because he told me I had to call you. I thought that spoke volumes because it made it clear where his priorities were.
And this is why I say that now the Democratic Party is that labor party, because we've heard the calls for we need a labor party like other countries have. And I said, no, how about we take one of them over?
Let's make the Democratic Party the party of labor, like you said, and I think at this convention we're feeling that. And labor is 20% of the delegates here. They are the backbone of what's happening here in Chicago, but also out in the field, as you know, in those battleground states. Labor is 20% of the vote that's going to deliver this victory for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Now, here's the other part of this. You've just laid out the reason the Republicans hate you. I mean, because, look, I've been told there have been some people who say that there are reachable Republicans, and I'm sure there are. I haven't found many of them. It's like a unicorn. I'm sure there are. Maybe in your world there have been, but I'm told they're out there. But I think this kind of shows why the attack, though.
Well, and we've always said we'll work with the folk who work with us. And we don't go into this saying we're only going to support a Democrat or a Republican. We say, no, we're issues-based. So if you support health care, if you support retirement security and Davis-Bacon and prevailing wage laws and making sure that, we have the right to organize, then we'll stand with you. We don't care what party you're from.
Yeah, I read that book that they just, that 900-page thing. Maybe you've seen it?
Something called Project, what was it?
Project End of the 20th Century.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, Project End the 20th Century and Return Us to the Gilded Age, that one?
And thank you for going deep on that, because you are a wonk when it comes to these issues and these policies, and I think you were part of how we were able to raise the visibility of Project 2025. Every union crowd I go into now knows about Project 2025. And in fact, on our website, betterinunion.org, we have an analysis by issue, by page number. You can dive right on into it. And I just want to thank you for your leadership on that.
No, I mean, look, it's simple. You can keyword it. It comes in a PDF. Find labor. Just look everywhere through labor or education or healthcare or any of that stuff, and you can see exactly what they say they want to do. Exactly. And I've always been one of those people who, if you're going to tell me what you're going to do, I'm going to believe you.
You have to, and we've seen this movie before. We knew in the first Trump 4 years. He was just kind of getting started, learning the ropes, and had all of these people, packed in the agencies that could tear down the regulations and the laws that protect us. So this is going to be, if he were to get into office again, a CEO's dream and a worker's nightmare.
Yep.
And Project 2025 is the roadmap to what he will do with actually more knowledge of how the government works, and he will do it with lightning speed and efficiency because
we're making patronage. We're making patronage great again.
Absolutely.
Because that's part of this Project 2025. Because what drew it to me originally months ago, well before it got into the mainstream news, was this idea that they're hiring people who are good loyalists to do all of the jobs that they can hire for. And then when they fire all the federal employees using this Schedule F, then they could replace them with good brown shirts or red hats or whatever they are. And look, what they were talking about is give us your social media, give us everything you've written to make sure you're sufficiently loyal.
It's
and
terrifying.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And nobody should want that.
No, and the people who actually know the substance, who actually are knowledgeable in a particular area of the government, those are the people we rely on after these political administrations come and go. We need the people who know how government works,
right,
and who aren't beholden to one president or another, and to do what's right by the American people.
I want boring bureaucrats. I want people who show up and do their job.
And be able to speak out when they see something.
Absolutely.
And that culture of fear that we already know existed in the first Trump administration would be even worse, as you said, when Schedule F is repealed, and people who fear even speaking out when they see something going awry, or government is manipulating, or whatever shenanigans are being pulled, that they can speak out without fear of retaliation. That would be gone.
So since we were talking about this Project 2025, how is it that we make sure that doesn't happen? I mean, ultimately, we know that it wants to repeal, prevailing wage, project labor agreements. It wants to bring us suggestion box unions. That's one of my. Walk me through this whole suggestion box union thing that they've come up with. I know J.D. Vance was kind of ahead of this TEAM Act.
The TEAM Act, 2.0, basically, to allow for company unions. Because right now we have free and fair unions where working people themselves decide if they want to form a union and exercise their right, their freedom of association to form their union. This would institute a company union scheme where your managers can essentially control the union, and it would be a union in name only, and really run by the company with hand-selected people that they think would be suitable to run, a workers' organization within a company. We both know that would be, the opposite of what your freedom to speak out, freedom to associate, come together and collectively bargain.
Yep.
So wouldn't they love that, right?
No, look, I talk about my union all the time. I've been a Teamster for almost 35 years now. It's made my life immensely better. That union card I carry in my wallet has given my family the opportunity to where my kids are never going to see the poverty, the violence, the man's inhumanity to man that I grew up with. And that's because the work I did was well compensated because of that contract. The health security, the retirement security, those are added bonuses and things that labor leaders like you, we should be screaming that from the mountaintops. And I know you are, but to see it on that stage, that was a kind of a big, to steal a Bidenism, kind of a big freaking deal.
Yes, and I think, when you look at the two paths that we could go down, one is that horror show or that movie that we've seen before with Donald Trump and now J.D. Vance, who has insulted every woman in this country who is a cat lady or a dog lady like myself, who want to take away our reproductive freedoms, who want to take away our right to form a union and strike or bargain and organize. Or we have this hopeful path, right, with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who is a union member, who has sat at a collective bargaining table, who knows what it means to have a union contract, and who want to stand up and fight for us and protect our rights and our freedoms. And it's just the starkness of both of those paths is just startling.
Yeah.
And so our job is going to be, let's get out there. We don't need to tell people. We need to inform, on the candidates' positions, inform people where they stand so they make their own decisions. Because right now our data is telling us, don't tell me who to vote for, but give me the facts.
Right.
And in an era of misinformation and disinformation, we know it's very hard to trust. And unions are the most trusted source, even more than family and friends. And I don't know what that says about people's families, but they trust union.
Well, we've all got that
members.
uncle.
Yes, exactly. And so
well, that's fabulous. And I know every election cycle, labor's out there knocking on doors. I've done it myself over the years. So I wish you guys nothing but the best. Anything we can do here to help get that message out, we're here for you. Liz, I appreciate you taking time for us.
Appreciate your partnership, Rick. Thank you.
Liz Schuler, president of the AFL-CIO. Want to hear your thoughts. Are you going to be out there knocking on the doors, informing your fellow coworkers? I want to hear it. Email me, Rick, at thericksmithshow.com. Right back.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
You know, as I've been saying, one of the things I love about coming to conventions is you run into people that you've had on the program over the years, and you usually talk to on the phone or via Zoom or somehow like that. But to actually get to be face-to-face, say hello, and you know, converse a little bit, that's a big deal. And my next guest is one of those folks who we've had on the program over the years. Whenever there's something going on in Chicago education, we reach out to Stacey Davis Gates, who's the president of the Chicago Teachers Union. Stacey, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, thank you for being here for me to take your time.
It is great to finally meet you. Thanks for being here. How are things in the world of education here in the Windy City?
Look, there's always a push and pull. Our school district here in the city has been deprived of funding for generations. And so we're always fighting that structural inequity. And conversely, we have a middle school teacher that's the mayor of Chicago. So we're living in this complicated, contradictory time period where we have the runway to be aspirational and hopeful in the realities of gross underfunding of our schools. So we're having a lot of fun right now.
No, look, and look, Kamala Harris is VP, teacher.
Not just a teacher, he like me, we're high school social studies teachers. The mayor is a social studies teacher, Brandon Johnson of the city. Listen, one of the things that I am most hopeful about is the fact that Vice President Harris with the Biden administration provided our school communities with more resources than ever at any other time in American history. That is of profound benefit. Now it establishes, I would say, a Biden benchmark that they have to overcome. But I'm also confident because as governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz figured out how to make ends meet. He's invested over $2 billion just this past appropriation for his school district. And on top of that, he listens to the movement. The movement said that they wanted children to be able to eat free, breakfast and lunch in school, and he signed the legislation to make that happen. So we're looking prospectively in a very positive way.
Now, the juxtaposition here is you've got the Republicans who, in their Project 2025, want to eliminate the Department of Education, and I would argue public education as a whole.
Well, that is their that's their strategy. I mean, look, the tactics, banning books, right? Going after DEI programs, targeting history that is not Eurocentric and, half written. These are things that they've been building up to, mobilizing moms who, haven't understood the dimensions of public education, pushing foolish and costly voucher programs, along with Project 2025. Project 2025 just wraps it all up in a nice little nasty bow and places it out here so it can be undeniable. So it gives you something to contrast with. We can have the politics of funding. We can have the politics of equity. We can have the politics of parent and student participation in a community schools design, or we can have Betsy DeVos to destroy it all over again.
And privatize and profitize and also minimize opportunities for students.
Well, why would you want black and brown, immigrant, working class children to have an opportunity to be in charge of this world? Listen, when we build strong leaders in public education, they contest for the power in this country. And if you want working class power, if you want power, predicated by women and people of color who've been marginalized for years, then you fund public education. But if you want to maintain a status quo, you fund voucher programs.
But this is also an outreach as well, or should be, to white rural people as well, because poverty, I don't think poverty cares about your skin color, cares about your gender, cares about where you are. Poverty is what it is, and that's part of the problem in this that I believe. And can you talk to maybe do a bit of that?
Absolutely. I think the best case study of that is what's happening in Texas right now. You have rural Republicans pushing back on voucher programs because they understand that taking money out of the public good marginalizes the opportunities for everyone. And they're in places where the public school is the center of their community.
Yeah.
It is the lighthouse. It is the place that holds the thing that glues everything else together. And so they're fighting fiercely to maintain that. And quite frankly, their voice on this, their unabashed voice on this, I think is winning the argument even more so than it did in Milwaukee when black children were given vouchers and it destroyed the entire system. So I do think extracting an experience that can be that can overcome race is the thing that we need, and vouchers is that.
Because I was going to go to that, because I was just talking to a guy from Texas who, Friday night football is the thing. If you destroy the local public school district, you destroy a good part of that. And it's amazing how when it starts to affect those communities, things change, because I don't think they ever thought it meant them.
Well, value. Who do we value in this country? Why do we value them in this country? And I tell people all the time, the powers that be, the elite corporate spaces, they prey upon those who are most vulnerable first, and then they work their way up to others. And so everyone gets a turn on the train of capitalism.
No. So how does a Harris-Walz ticket, how does this convention, how do we move forward so that every child, look, I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland. I was the minority in a minority community, so I know what poverty looks like. I know what dysfunctional schools look like. I know what underfunding means. We had enough money to fund buses to ship us all over the place, but not enough to have the resources that every one of us need. How do we take what comes out of this and ensure that every child, mine, yours, the people walking by here, that they all have an opportunity to get the kind of education that we want for them?
Well, look, that's the Rainbow Coalition. Interestingly enough, in 1984, Reverend Jackson gave a speech that basically narrated our pathway forward as a country, a powerful country, a country where people whose experiences are connected, the poverty, the lack of respect you get on your jobs, the communities that have been disinvested in, that those are the experiences that connect us. Those are the experiences that we organize against, and those are the experiences that we challenge and we beat. I think that is the lesson that I'm going to take from this convention, is that we are more alike than we are different, that what hurts me on the south side of Chicago also hurts my sibling in rural America as well.
No, good point. So put on your social studies hat.
Yes, sir.
For a moment. What do you think? What do you think of what's going on here?
Well, listen, I think you get the tapestry of America in Chicago this week. You get an anti-war demonstration. You get people calling for a ceasefire, for the humanity of the people on the Gaza Strip. You're getting that. You're also getting a push and pull within a party. Like last night, to see AOC and Sean Fain and April Verrett and Mayor Brandon Johnson all open up the first day of the convention says to me that the progressives, the labor leaders, the working families are winning the argument inside the parliament of the Democratic Party. And if we win the argument in the parliament of the Democratic Party, more people win, because we, sing out of the hymn book of the many and the we and the ands of the world. Unlike the neoliberals, I think it's good that we don't get to see the Rahm Emanuels on the stage. I think it's absolutely in line, because they failed us. Rahm Emanuel closed out 50 schools in Chicago. He should never be able to stand on a Democratic stage anymore. So when you show that sharp departure from what did not help, what did marginalize, to that which is hopeful, I'm encouraged.
Yeah, and now, we saw President Biden speak on Monday night. Is that his legacy?
Listen, I think President Biden has a legacy of, I'll start here. Ketanji, a black woman, is a Supreme Court justice. Kamala, will be the president of the United States of America. You know, say what you will about identity politics, it does do something to you to see a reflection of yourself in some of the highest places of power. And his Supreme Court justice has not failed us. Her dissenting opinions have been absolutely within the values that she said she had during her confirmation hearing. So that is, I think, one of the most solid parts of his legacy. I think what's also a great part of his legacy is that, you know, more people would be dead if Donald Trump was still in power with the COVID virus. I think it's also clear that his administration put schools on a path to provide them with more, right? With more resources and fundings. And that's been the largest infusion of resources to public schools since LBJ and the Elementary Secondary Education Act back in the 1960s.
No, I've been saying this is a transformational administration, and that Kamala Harris, when they win in November, will pick up this mantle and continue to move us down this path, ending neoliberalism, investing in infrastructure, rebuilding our manufacturing, and educating our children.
But she can't do that by herself, right? You know, all the labor leaders that were on the floor last night, they also have to bring their members into spaces to push and challenge for more. The beautiful part about how we do this political work in this country is that we can make a demand. We can make a demand, and we better organize and make plenty of those demands, because my friends in the movement in Minnesota tell me that the vice president nominee, Tim Walz, will hear us. My friends in California tell me that Vice President Harris took the banks to task and won back reparations for homeowners that were mishandled in the financial process. So, look, we make a demand. We organize, we continue to push and challenge, and we make a better America.
There you go. It's the old FDR frame. If you want me to do something, make me. That's it. Very, very simple.
Yes.
And this is an administration that I think you could make by getting out in the streets. Unlike the
the only thing he's going to make us do, he's going to make it harder. And that's what I tell my members, like, look, don't let good be the enemy of perfect. We have someone who will listen and respond. On the other hand, you already know what he's going to do.
Yep.
He's going to make the biggest mess of it ever. And we have so much that we need in this moment that we can't afford to keep cleaning up old messes. And that's an old mess.
Right there with you, Stacey Davis Gates. I appreciate you taking time for us. Great seeing you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Going to take a quick break back here from Chicago, here at the Democratic headquarters national convention. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Education, that's what it's all about. I got to tell you, Stacey's she's an amazing guest, but an even more amazing labor leader. What we've seen here in Chicago, look, on the labor front, on the education front, it's about making lives better. And I can't tell you, again, I come back to all of the people we come across here, focused on moving this country in a positive direction, which I'll tell you, as someone who paid attention to the entire IRNC, watched just about every minute of it, the differences are, well, stark. The differences between the fear, the smear, the drudgery, the country's burning. Look, we've been banging around Chicago. I've seen no burning dumpsters. We haven't been mugged because we've been walking around at all hours of the day and night. This fantasy world, or this fearful world that a lot of my conservative friends seem to think is out there. That's what we saw from the RNC. This world of be afraid of every corner because you never know. Whereas here, it's around every corner is an opportunity. Behind every door is a chance to make things better, to make lives better, to do the right thing. And look, I may sound like I'm a bit cheerleadery, and which is rare for me because I'm rarely the optimist. But in this environment with these people, I'll tell you, I feel that we could quite frankly change the world. That's an amazing feeling. It really, really is an amazing feeling, and it's an amazing thing to be here to witness that. And I think that's important to get out and talk about. I hope folks will, hope we're enjoying the coverage here of the convention, the folks that we've talked to, the ideas that have popped up, and look, the passion that we're seeing. Hope that's coming across. But I want to hear your thoughts. Obviously, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, grab the podcast. Wherever you find your favorite podcast, you'll find ours. And as always, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.